Thanks for having me. My name is Chaw, and I'm the head of NAMIC in Singapore. I'll be sharing a little bit about what the Singapore AM ecosystem has been doing in the last few years, and also to give you a sense of what the focus for us in terms of driving for AM industrialization towards value capture. Just a quick introduction. NAMIC is actually a public funded AM accelerator, and we're currently located and hosted by the Innovation Enterprise arm of Nanyang Technological University of Singapore, and was supported by the National Research Foundation. And we work extremely closely with the economic agencies, as well as our research agency, A*STAR. I think just to kind of connect to what Wataru-san just mentioned earlier for in terms of the Japan ecosystem is very similar in terms of the thinking process for Singapore, where we're looking into how to enhance our industry competitiveness by orchestrating some of these breakthrough strategies for the future production using hybrid and additive manufacturing. And we do this a few ways, right? Through nurturing and expanding our AM ecosystem, creating a platform for test and implementation, hopefully catalyze new business growth, business models, and of course, to look into standards and certification. Just to give you a snapshot, it's a bit busy on this slide, but just to give you a view that in Singapore, this has been work in progress since 2010. And we have a very comprehensive public ecosystem that focuses on various parts of the value chain of additive manufacturing, from software to materials to process to standards and certification. And our role National Accelerator is essentially to coordinate all these institutes as well as the research performance in the universities. And I think over the years we have basically invested quite significantly in public infrastructure, and we have funded quite a number of public-private initiatives, essentially developing AM technology and solutions to support what the various industry sector and businesses require. And in terms of the just to give you a snapshot of the, how the AM value chain in Singapore looks like today, we currently have about 70 companies, 170 companies, in Singapore. A lot of them are multinationals, in the OEM equipment or software space. We do have also startups, some of them from overseas that we scout, and we work with them to establish a presence in Singapore. At the same time, we also focus a lot on our own local startups as well. Some of the companies, for example, like Ostepor, they are one of the few bioresorbable implant company in the world that has already been FDA approved as well as CE-mark approved. We also have dedicated service bureaus such as 3D Metal Forge that supports the maritime marine offshore industry. And there's also a huge ecosystem right now in the testing and certification space. You can see on the bottom right, most of the major players, the class societies, some of the certification companies like TUSUD are all have a big presence in Singapore and looking at how to deploy AM and to support the ecosystem. This is not meant to confuse you, but just to kind of give you a sense that the way we approach this is we are, like I said, we are a connector for the local AM ecosystem with the outside world. So we have, in some ways, we're open platform. We engage organizations, large and small, foreign, local. We actually fund projects. In fact, we curate a lot of these projects. And the way it works is we will orchestrate a problem statement from the industry partners and basically matchmake with a research performer from our a very large research pool base. And at the same time, we also look into supporting startups, and in some cases we do even spin off companies as well from some of the institutes of higher learning. The Singapore economy, I think, relative among all the countries shared today, we are a very small country, as most of you know. We're literally a red dot. In fact, without the red dot, you can't see us on the map. But several of the manufacturing sector itself, it's a huge part of our local GDP. So about 21%, and there's aerospace, there's electronics, there's advanced manufacturing, energy, chemicals, and in all these different spaces that we play in the manufacturing sector, we try to be a very strong niche player in terms of as an export country, right? So, for example, we actually supply about 25% of the global semiconductor equipment, based on 2017 numbers, and this is quite a big number, given the size of our country. And also, we are actually one of the top MRO player in the world as well, with about 25% market share. And from the perspective, the Singapore government, we have this 5-year R&D roadmap. We call it the Research Innovation Enterprise. The RA 2025 roadmap, which basically starts officially from basically this year to 2025. We have allocated, the government has basically allocated a huge funding as well as support in order to help deepen the manufacturing capabilities. And additive manufacturing will continue, right? Since 2010, will continue to be one of the key focus areas, in addition to other adjacent technologies like AI and automation, in order to enhance the Singapore's manufacturing value proposition as a hub, and also to strengthen our supply chain resilience in the view of some of these black swan events like COVID-19. Some of the opportunities, again, not to go too deep into this flavor in terms of how we look at this, is a very metrics-driven approach when we, for as far as our this industrialization initiatives is concerned. We look at every sector that can potentially present use cases, and it can potentially also, allow the sector to transform. So these are some of the criteria that we looked at. Whether Singapore can play a major role in, deploying AM in order to pivot the industry, whether it's the biomedical healthcare or food. For example, most of our food is imported, right? And there's now a goal, because of what happened with COVID, that we want to be self-sufficient, to be able to supply our own food or grow our own food, at least 30% of that by 2030. And we are very big players in the maritime, marine, offshore. We're essentially one of the, because of our geographical position, we are one of the top maritime hubs, as well as aviation hub. Despite not having oil in our shores, we have one of the largest, two of the largest jackup rig manufacturers in Keppel, as well as the Sembcorp Marine. Of course, these are in industries that in some ways are in circular decline. So there's now, efforts in order to help these industries to pivot forward by using additive manufacturing to look into how to enable new business models, such as on-demand manufacturing for spare parts and so on and so forth. A little bit about the talent space as well, the R&D. As I mentioned, there's a lot of work across the whole technology readiness level. For NAMIC, we're playing in the space of translation. So between TRL 4 to 7, there are a lot of work, of course, that is done by research institutes in more upstream. But most of our focus, actually, to be frank, because given our size, is really on translation and also downstream applications. And talent development is a space that is very big for us. I think the university have programs to train a lot of these AM specialists and engineers in order to, elevate the industry capability. Some of the examples in AM adoption in the current industry, again, not to go too much details, but in marine offshore, we have good traction with one of the companies, Semcott Marine, and they're already looking into how to use AM for repair primarily, and also for some of the large parts manufacturing. To enable some of these large format 3D printing, we actually have developed our own in-house hybrid WAM system. This is a combination of both additive and subtractive technology combined with this wire feedstock in order to deliver the cost value proposition that these companies require. And we also work with startups like Additive Solutions, which is a joint venture between SI Engineering Company and Stratasys. They are basically the service bureau. Essentially, they are YASA certified as well as FAA certified for for design authority as well as production authority, and they're looking into how to be one of the top service bureau to supply airline cabin parts and tooling for MRO. COVID-19, I think, we are still in the midst of it. So just to kind of share briefly that, as part of the global community, within this whole family of countries as well as the organizations, we actually, in some ways, we'll have to step up, especially last year when all the countries were closing borders and all that. So we had a shortage in some of these medical supplies. Test kits like nasopharyngeal swabs and things like that, and ventilator components. So there was a huge push from us to galvanize the entire private sector ecosystem to start 3D printing lines and to do the design development within a very short time, and then to deliver the actual products. So I think this is the same with what we have seen in the global community, and I would have to say that this was one of the true examples of collaboration across borders without without the usual some of the issues that we see when there's this cross-border organized cooperation. One of the big themes in the forward-looking next 5 years for us is to look into sustainable manufacturing, and I think all of us here are very much sign up to this. In a lot of things that we do today is just not sustainable, and it's contributing to a lot of the waste and pollution, and of course climate change, which is a big problem. It's a planetary crisis. So as part of this process, we have started some initiatives in the last few years to look into how to better improve the use of these raw materials, especially for feedstock. And for a lot of the use cases that we curate with our industry partners is to see how we can really realize some of these part consolidation examples, use recycled materials, and of course reduce waste materials, and so on and so forth. So this is a key focus for us in the next few years. And some of the examples that's already sort of looked at in the last. Just to give you some examples is, for example, in the built environment space, where we look into some of the substitutes for concrete, using fly ash to replace sand, or using waste glass to replace sand because we don't have sand in Singapore. And of course, in the maritime sector, one of the big play for this, and it's kind of the big thing now, is to look into how to enable spares on demand and not having to ship parts from all the way from halfway around the world. Last example, just to give you the last slide here, is just to show these are some of the things we do. We fund these sort of initiatives working with startups to actually from proof of concept to actual production-worthy systems that can actually result in value creation opportunities for the businesses. And we do events as well. This was an event that was done last week on the built environment space. So with that, I end my presentation.
Thank you for so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Ho, for sharing insights about the Singaporean market. It's super exciting to see how the additive supply chain is thriving. Let's just ask one question before we open the floor for Marcel. So Marcel, get ready. There are also more than 4,200 international companies with their Asia HQ based in Singapore as of 2020. Where and how do you see AM play a role across Asia in terms of collaboration? Well,
given the size of Singapore, of course, even though we do aspire to continue to anchor these companies, and a lot of them have the same aspiration to establish new manufacturing capabilities, and AM comes to the in terms of priority. But we think that as given the in some ways the support the government has given in the last few years, we have in some ways fortunate to have a head start. So what we're trying to do right now is to find a way to share some of this knowledge with our regional partners, especially the Southeast Asian countries, which we're very close with as part of ASEAN.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ho, for sharing your insights. If you guys are interested in learning more about NAMIC, feel free to go to the virtual networking floor. And there's a lot of folks from NAMIC beyond Dr. Ho that will be there to help support and ask any questions as you enter into your additive journey.